Is there any downside to working with non-accredited investors? This is an interesting question because an attorney and a business person might give you different answers. Certainly, an attorney, which I'm not, would tell you that you have to be more careful working with non-accredited. You might have to supply more information. That the SEC rules are more complicated when it comes to people who have a little bit less ability to protect themselves, unlike accredited investors who have the ability to hire an attorney, a CPA, have advisors look over their deal. So when you have those kind of people, some of the needs to disclose information are relaxed a little bit, but they're a little bit more stringent when you have non-accredited. So a lot of attorneys would prefer that you never deal with non-accredited. From a business perspective, the real issue is that non-accredited just don't have that much money. And even in any of our deals, if you're doing a 506B, you can only have 35 of these people. Now, I suppose that somebody could have an IRA account and maybe they have several $100,000 in it. They're still not accredited. It's possible, but most of the time they have less, and most of the time they're not going to give you all their money anyway. So you're just going to get a fraction of their assets. And so you're talking about getting, smaller numbers of dollars, 10, 20, 30, maybe even as much as 50,000. But typically speaking, non-accredited investors are not going to bring with you the same volume of dollars that you're going to get from your accredited investors, which is a shortcoming. The other problem is that the non-accredited investors tend to be newer at making these kinds of investments. They're not as sophisticated. If they take a loss, it's much more substantial to them. So for all these reasons, they're the ones that are probably going to make trouble for you. They're probably the ones that are going to complain the most. They're probably the ones that are going to sue the most likely. They might be the ones that would call regulators or do things that would be unfavorable to you. And finally, because they don't understand things necessarily as well as somebody who's more wealthy, they may call you more often, and they may ask a lot of questions, and they may just be more involved and more present. And you have to decide from an investor relations point of view if you want to do that kind of hand-holding with people that are newer investors and you really want to coach them along. Nothing wrong with that, but you have to decide if you have the temperament and the patience to work with people in that capacity. So for all of these reasons, you have to decide what kind of investors you want. Typically speaking, bigger dollars come from bigger investors. More opportunity comes from bigger investors. A little bit more relaxed relationship comes with bigger investors. Better referrals come with bigger investors, all the way around. One last thing about non-accrediteds is a person that gives you $5,000 or $10,000, that might be really all the investable assets they have. And they're going to want to check in on that all the time. Whereas somebody who gives you 50 grand, an accredited investor, they may have that same 50 in 10 different places. So they really are much more hands-off. They're much busier in their business, their career, working on whatever it is that they're doing. So you really got to think carefully what your temperament is, what your level of patience is, what your capacity is, so you can figure out exactly what kind of investors to take. Certainly all people deserve a crack, but you just have to figure out whether that's going to be with you. This is a great business. Now go out and stake your claim.